Hello guys, TKG's here for your comfortable Lost Ark life. In this video, I'd like to cover one of his class, Gunslinger. As the video in my channel has some old introduction and editing, so I want to remake it like a recent cover video. And of course add some more categories and chapters for more clear explanations. Now follow me, I'll show you what you need. Before I start this video, one thing you gotta know, this video is from the KL server. And of course, it is based on KL statistic and the common experience right now, as the Lost Ark always try to fix the balance between the class by classes. So in the future, some of the composition of the skills can be a little bit changed too. And as the video is containing about the gaming experience and build on KL, some of the composition of the skills, triple build, can be a little bit different with the global. But I will try to explain as much as I can and easy as I can in this video of those preference and the build on KL. And maybe you can also know the recent situation and community right now on KL on this class. And of course with this video, you can utilize some of the build for your Lost Ark journey. So watch this video with those considerations and use this video as your reference to your Lost Ark journey. Let's start with the most basic of this video. Class engraving I'm going to cover in this video is Peacemaker. Peacemaker is class engraving that utilizing her 3 identity stance: handgun, shotgun, and the rifle. And each different stance will give you different buff to a gunslinger. With these characteristics, with this Peacemaker gunslinger, you might or could be busy on every raid contest. One specific of the Peacemaker gunslinger is coming from the rifle stance buff. For Korean expression, we call this section as yakmu. For the English expression, engraving called disrespect might be more similar. But you have to note that those disrespect buff only can be applied to a rifle stance. As the Gunslinger class is quite old, I think, personally, Gunslinger combat stat engraving build is now formalized. Of course still the community on the KL testing some of the new combination and searching for the new tricks, but still I think Peacemaker Gunslinger mostly and largely formalized. So what I want to say is that I can't show you all of its variation and experiment to build in this one video. So I will going to show you the most representative build and engraving combination on this video. Peacemaker Gunslinger typical build can be summarized by these 2 builds. One that use the critical, specialization, swiftness, or one that use the critical, specializations. Personally, I think the Gunslinger has not many players on using full critical or other stat. Mostly they build it with more some exact proportions. Let's start with the explanation of the critical, specialization, swiftness. Besides, I write down the standard proportion of the stat, so if you wish to modify your Gunslinger, you can try it, but try to lower the swiftness for better performance. Personally, I think Gunslinger build with these setting might be great setting for the beginners. Gotta be honest, building the Gunslinger with this build might show you a decent or standard performance during the contest, but you can't reach the ceiling with this build. So I recommend you use this build when you decided to park her as alt. But for the guys who want to raise her as your main character level, you need to build her with the critical and specializations. Unlike the other classes, Gunslinger build has a little different proportions on the critical and specializations, which depends on the engraving build. First debate, or maybe not, is about engraving build on the Gunslinger. Luckily, Gunslinger now has 2 representative build. For the KL expressions, level 1 Peacemaker or level 3 Peacemaker. Well, actually, whether you use the level 1 or level 3, there are not many differences between the 2 builds. Well, technically, slight differences are existing on the DPS performance. Well, for more details, in a similar circumstances, level 1 Peacemaker is 2% better than the level 3 Peacemakers, and with some requirements, level 3 is better. Big differences from the level 1 and level 3 is skill compositions, which level 1 Peacemaker use the handgun skill called Bullet Rain as a main and sub DPS skill, and level 3 Peacemaker use the Shotgun Rapid Fire as a main and sub DPS skill. So what is my recommendation? Well, I recommend you to use the level 1 Peacemaker for better performance and controls. The reason is simple. Level 3 Peacemaker does need little more harder requirements for better performance than the level 1 Peacemaker. In order to show your better performance as level 3 Peacemaker, you need 97 stone for 5-3 plus 2 adrenals. Yep, pretty tough one, right? So in other words, you need some luck and gold for that one. Unlike the other identity classes, Gunslinger identity has more soft standard, or more like it has not much things to concern as playing the Gunslinger. In other words, Gunslinger doesn't need the pre-work like supplying identity or like waiting for the identity. So Gunslinger style is more like, well, it's just you and the game. You can almost pick it up and play it right away without some concern and requirements. And Gunslinger also has a really stylish gameplay. If you like the busy controls, like manually switching your weapon stance for every skill cycle, Gunslinger might be just for you. And as you might roughly know about the Gunslinger, Gunslinger has a decent scenery skill with very short cooldown, so during the gameplay, you might feel a little comfortable on maintaining the scenery during the raid play. Above all, like the most classes, it has a reputation on the skill numbers, mostly has 8, right? Gunslinger has quite useful and variety skills that can be actually utilized on actual gameplay. But unlike the busy control during the gameplay, her DPS might not that much than you expected. For more Korean expressions, busy hands, but small return. For more personal experience, I think, Gunslinger positioning inside the Lost Ark is more like additional and synergical class, even on the 1600 parties. Gunslinger role is quite limited too. Makes me feel more like Gunslinger has some certain limitation on the performance. So if you are expecting her as a main DPS classes, you might be disappointed on her performance. Also, Gunslinger has a really short on HP. Some of the incoming attacks that are tolerable to the other classes, for a Gunslinger, that might be led to death. So you have to be more cautious. Unlike the other classes has some really picky requirements to fulfill, as I mentioned in the beginning, Gunslinger playstyle is more like just you and a game style. So in order to do mediocre or decent performance inside of the raid, all you have to do, build the right stat proportions. And as I mentioned in the first, Gunslinger has a small amount of HP compared to the other classes. So if you are confident on controls, Gunslinger might be great to play and handle. Core mechanic with the Gunslinger is buff and damage. Gunslinger is more like and one of the classes that needs some attention to your buff, or more like debuff toward the enemy. So for better expression, Gunslinger is a class that needs some pre-work before you start to pour your main DPS skills. Come to think of it, maybe it has not many things to concern for your skill combos. All you have to do is keep your critical buff before you start the main DPS cycle, or maybe whole skill cycle. Gunslinger skill composition can be summarized or categorized by the color. Purple that represent as a rifle, blue that represent as a shotgun, and orange or red that represent as handgun skill. Actually, Gunslinger skill composition can be a little bit different by build and players. That reason can be found out in the engraving build and preference. As I mentioned in the first, level 1 Peacemaker does use the handgun skill called Bullet Rain. Level 3 Peacemaker does use the shotgun skill called Shotgun Rapid Fire as a main or additional DPS skill. Most of the Gunslinger use these 8 skills as her backbone DPS skills. But of course, you are not going to master all of those skills, so mostly it has some typical build on the skills, like 7M, 6M, 7M is meaning of the master of the certain skills. For example, if you fully leveling the 7 skills, we called 7M. So for more easier explanation, Gunslinger build or composition of the skills can be summarized like this. 6M composition mostly used by the critical specialization swiftness build Gunslinger. 7M composition is mostly used by the critical specialization build Gunslinger. For short, good and bad, when you decided to use a 6M with 7, you might have a better performance on utilizing your skills on many different situations. And above all, those utility skills can be good at surviving in the raid. And with the AT-02 grenade, you can push the stagger very fast in short period of time. But as you choose your skill composition to giving up one of your main skill, your DPS performance might be or hugely drops. For using 7M, relatively has a better DPS performance than the 6M skill composition. But because of the lack of survival and utility skills, you might need some time to get used to it. But as I am raising the Gunslinger 7M from the start, I've never experienced the discomfort on survival during the whole raid contest. Still, Gunslinger has plenty of skills that can be utilized on your survival. So choose the best option that fits to your control. Build and priority can be summarized by this text box. I'll explain the tripod, gem priority, and some gimmick combination after this text box. Also, I wrote the different combination and the leveling about the main DPS skills, so if you wish to see the leveling, try to move to the skill composition section for efficient leveling. Gunslinger, well, for Korean expression, 포마절타, focus shot, sharpshooter, dual buckshot, target down has a quite high proportion on the DPS performance. So, in order to show you a decent performance, set those tripod as your priority. Gem priority can be summarized like this. Actually, it is quite almost similar with the tripod priority. So try to set the gem with this order. Also, I add some useful infos for the gimmick performance of the gunslinger and my skill composition, so try to use this dagger destruction as your reference when you playing the Lost Ark as a gunslinger. Awakening skill is an Eye of Twilight. Actually, gunslinger awakening skill is more like a preference, but most of the gunslinger that I met, even I, use the Twilight on the right. HE explosive, mostly I think it is great to use in the daily chaos dungeon. But actually, roll up the gunslinger awakening is more like used as turning on the nightmare or other gear buff. Unlike the other classes has some break like because of the range or back attack or some identity, Gunslinger has much more free hands on damage dealing and positioning on many different rates. You can actually sit far outside and start your skill cycle too. Also, she has a very decent synergy and movement skill even with no swiftness. Skill combo of the Gunslinger is really a reference, but also quite necessary to keep these two buff. Most of the Gunslinger skill start from the two core buff skill, Spiral Tracker and Quickstep. Personally, I think Gunslinger is quite easy to keep the skill combo in many different ways. Maybe because I think the Gunslinger aren't that have much burden keeping or supplying the identity. So try to keep in mind to use those two skills before you start the whole combo. So in short, Gunslinger skill combo is not just memorizing it, but to understand the cycle and utilize the skill with more flexibility on many different situations. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching everyone, and always, thanks for your big support. Hope this video was real helped for your Lost Ark journey. Hope you do well with your Gunslinger with this video. And of course, if you liked my videos, hit the sub for more upcoming infos. I'll come back with more useful infos in the next video.